A courthouse construction project is still up in the air for Springfield, but we are getting answers tonight from leaders across the state on where we stand.
Western Mass News reporter Wesley Days is live at City Hall, where local leaders and the public are meeting right now to understand what lies ahead in the construction process. And Wesley, there's also pushback on what caused this meeting to happen.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here. It just started a few minutes ago, that meeting just a couple of floors from where I'm standing here in the front of City Hall, Amanda and Chris. Now, frustrations about current courtroom conditions are not the only thing people are upset about at this hour.
You want to get reelected, don't step on our necks to get there.
Counselor criticism?
Take away the mold, take away the sickness that we've got in this building.
Mixed with courtroom construction concerns, city councilors are slated to meet with the state's Department of Capital Management and Maintenance to get a progress report on where we stand on getting a new courthouse as employees deal with pains of the present one.
We are woefully inadequately supplied with holding facilities. Someday it's going to be a problem.
Clerk of Courts Laura Gentile didn't hold back on the current strains of the building.
We've outgrown this building. We don't have enough courtrooms.
Neither did she on where she thinks one city councilor's concern comes from ahead of the meeting he called during an election year.
I think it's a political ploy by Tim Allen, who's never set foot in this building as long as I've been here.
Councilor Tim Allen has one response to those claims.
My response is I'm a city councilor in Springfield, and it matters where this building ends up going, and I just want to facilitate people to have an opportunity to speak on it.
Despite the dispute, there's plenty of wishes from community stakeholders on what the future courthouse could hold.
I would like it to be more modernized and more up-to-date, more friendly to the community, accessible.
If there's a new courthouse, should it have some facility for parking? I think so.
All right, I want to also bring in something that we've been talking about since 4 o'clock this afternoon. It's called a public-private relationship, and it's kind of starting to brew between the state and private companies. What we mean by that is that there could be an opportunity for a private company to come in and build this new courthouse, and then the public, which would be the state, could then lease that building from that private company instead of taking the time to actually have to build that courthouse through the state and taking it through state approvals and things of that nature. Gentile does believe that that could be a better scenario for all of us here in the area who will end up using that courthouse at some point. It lacks the need for taxpayer dollars, and we don't have to go through those entire approval processes that happen across the state in Boston. We'll, of course, keep you updated, and we'll have more details from that meeting just a few steps away when you watch Western Mass News starting tonight at 10. Reporting live in Springfield, Wesley Days, Western Mass News.
A beautiful weather day.